What's the key to a great non-player character? How do you make sure that the social side of the game is on equal footing with the combat side of things? How do you get the player characters and the NPCs to form a true connection? Well, like most things in Dungeons and Dragons and in life, I don't believe there is like one single answer, and I celebrate the fact that every table is different, but I think I figured out a super simple way and a very effective way to get the players to connect with the NPCs in a deeper manner and maybe even, care about them a little bit. Have that connection established in the first place. Now, you can't do this every time for every NPC, but to turn to a player and say, hey, you know this guy, you two go way back, is probably the most efficient way to skip that getting to know you and, the what's in it for me phases of social encounters, and to hand your dungeon master a list of half a dozen NPCs that your character knows already for them to adapt and run with however they choose, however best suits their plans. I don't know if there's a sure way to get your character to feel connected to the world they are exploring better. I almost called the Game Master's Compendium of Explosive Creation Connections, because that's really the guiding principle here. Probably should have called it that because it's a lot easier to say, but with the compendium, one of the most fun components to be creating are these friendly NPC tables for each character archetype spread. Imagine rolling a d6 during character creation and or at session 0, and along with your characters, starting gear and abilities, you've got a built-in relationship with an NPC. Maybe the dungeon master goes through the list and picks out the one that best suits the adventure they have prepared already. And now, if that happens once or twice for every player, this world we're about to enter is already populated with people the party have connections with. It's not some stranger in the tavern who needs help. It's somebody one of our heroes has known, maybe for years. If there's some mystery to solve and we need more information, we're not stopping randos on the street. We're going to ask our friend who is most likely to have the answers. And if there is a threat to this town, we're going to feel it much more acutely because this is our town. We have connections here. Think about all the great supporting characters in all of your favorite stories, or come at it from the opposite direction. Think about what the last movie or show you enjoyed would be like if there were only the, 3 to 5 main characters in it. Sure, bottle episodes are a thing, and in some sessions, going down to the dungeon can be a lot like getting stuck in an elevator, but if that's all the show was every time, we would probably start watching something else eventually. Consider any heroic fantasy character, and I bet they've got like a mentor figure or a sidekick or an informant, something. And maybe that person is injecting some guidance or some context or comedic relief while we're at it. This side character doesn't outshine the main characters, they provide them with more opportunities for depth and development. And as a DM, having a bench of NPCs ready to go when you need one to push the story along or like drop a plot hook is great, let me tell you. Hey, your old friend is back in town and she's got a quest for you, or your old coworker is looking for you. He said something about a magic item you might find helpful. I bet that leads to player engagement. Maybe there is an NPC that's important to the adventure we're running already, and it's, pivotal that the characters care about them. How often have you seen the PCs bounce off of that pivotal NPC they're supposed to rescue or whatever, while they fall in love with some random Gerblin kidnapper? It happens to me the first time I ran a campaign. So grabbing a relevant entry from a player character archetype table and kind of merging them with the NPC we would really like them connecting with is a very quick shortcut that's going to get us where we need to go. Now, what gets really interesting for me is taking this one step further and forming connections with these connections. You don't want to overdo it or force it because it doesn't always, make sense, honestly. But in those moments when two characters have a relationship to the same NPC, sparks can really start to fly. Let me tell you what's going to happen in my game tonight. We've been playing Pathfinder 2nd Edition, and we're getting deeper into the Abomination Vaults, and last week a couple people couldn't make it, and I still ran because I think smaller tables are great at times. I made a whole video about it. You should run with players missing. Definitely check this one out. But this time around, a difficult encounter in a difficult adventure, missing a couple player characters, and yada yada yada. Everybody died. I should say everybody dropped to 0 HP, but they all made their saves or still had hero points, so they're only mostly dead.
There's a big difference between mostly dead and all dead.
So to start off tonight, they are going to wake up imprisoned by the Morlocks who got them, and locked up there with them is a pair of thieves who came down here to get that treasure. Now, they already found one of these guys lying dead on some creepy altar, and he might as well have been a piece of furniture for all they cared about him. They talked about flaying off the flap of skin on his shoulder where he'd been tattooed, but honestly, I can't remember at this moment, but I don't know if they went through it or not. I think they failed the medicine check and messed it up. But anyway, I want my players to care about these NPCs they're going to meet tonight, because they can get this adventure back on track after a wipe, and it's okay if they go in a different direction, but they don't have a lot of good options here since they'll be waking up without most of their gear. So I'm going to tell the rogue, hey, you recognize this guy from a job you almost did a long time ago. And I'm going to tell the druid, who's got a bounty hunter background, that he recognizes them from a wanted poster, but, the reward was tiny because they're not that big of a deal. I'm going to leave room for them to add and embellish because I'm definitely more interested by what, this exchange reveals about their characters than my unlucky members of the local thieves guild. But having that connection out of the gate is going to pave the way for that, and for the player characters to get back to town and lick their wounds, gear up, and come back to the dungeon with a vengeance. So hopefully you're at least starting to see how you can use this concept in your home game. We're going to go over one table in the Game Master's Compendium of Explosive Creation real quick, and I want you to think about how you could use or adapt these NPCs to bolster your world building if you're running a game. And if you're a player right now, I want you to think about different ways a character could interact and benefit from these assets and allies. Let's look at the acrobat archetype, a great fit for any dex-based or arguably even a strength-based character. I could also see interesting storytelling coming out of a caster who was born into or joined a troop and kind of just, didn't cut it, and a charisma class with a background performing in the circus feels like a pretty natural fit as well. All right, our first NPC is Silky Ramad, an alluring silk dancer who learns much from her cadre of rich suitors. I'm trying really hard with all of these to hit that sweet spot between adaptability and specificity, and I think I nailed it with this one. An aerialist who tours the cabarets or maybe headlines a burlesque show. Maybe she's some exquisite elf, even with a touch of divinity, performing at like a Cirque du Soleil type high art show, or maybe he's a dwarf in drag and the show's pretty raunchy. And the idea that she's getting information from suitors makes the possibilities wide open. She might be attending fabulous dinner parties with, the most interesting people in town, or hearing the whispers in those smoky back rooms where the elites are gathering, or she could be recording the pillow talk of the politicians who visit her incognito. Man, I love this stuff. This is why I called the compendium explosive, by the way, because those, dozen words, 15 words, that sentence fragment expands rapidly and releases a ton of energy when exposed to the imagination. Should we look at this next one? Artist Kane, a barker who runs a freak show to provide for and protect his wards. I mean, I would watch that show. What does a freak show look like in a TTRPG? What ostracized ancestries and victims of magical mishaps have banded together under Artist Kane's watchful eye? I mean, this is basically a friendly faction, not just an allied NPC, the Kane's Brothers Keepers, sideshow of oddities, right? What could a squad of Coney Island X-Men do for the party? This seems like a good time to point out you could always go, shopping for NPCs under other archetypes as well. Maybe you don't have an acrobat at the table, right? There's no reason you couldn't lift Artist Kane and company and meld them into your game. Sometimes you just need an interesting NPC, and this book is going to have hundreds of them. Now, we're in the Goldilocks zone, for my style, but I feel like some folks out there will want a little more development. So, as a stretch goal, I'm looking to add at least a pair of tables for character traits, physical and personality, which you could apply to PCs and NPCs alike. And if we take this Kickstarter far enough, I'm also hoping to include like a full spread for NPC generation that you could use alone or as like a multiplier for any of these characters. Of course, you can always turn to one of the 50 core archetypes to grab motivation or like an origin story, magic item, rivals, plot hooks, whatever you need to round out an NPC. I was going to go over all 6 entries in this table, but you get the idea. And with a little bit of luck, you've got some imaginative sparks lighting up right now as well. You can go back and pause the video if you want to read those other entries, or check out the big old preview I am offering for the Game Master's Compendium of Explosive Creation, which you can start using right now to make your Dungeons & Dragons or Pathfinder or whatever heroic fantasy game you're picking up next even better. Link in the description to check out that preview. And did I mention I didn't? There's 100 meaningful objects and magic item concepts in that preview alone. We're going to be diving into that one next time. Oh, there's also a link to Verdigris Table merch down there. And, those buttons like, subscribe, share, which all help this channel out tremendously. Thank you so much for watching. Be kind. Have fun.